Hey, it's the nerdy sports fan here. Now, in this ridiculous period of protests and riots and the return of very awkward conversations, I wanted to revisit the summer of 2016 and remind people what this whole Colin Kaepernick protest thing was about originally, before it got co-opted by every politician on the planet. Now, in the summer of 2016, if anybody remembers, Colin Kaepernick was the backup quarterback to Jimmy Clausen, if memory serves. Now, a lot of his detractors will say that the protest that he did later was because it was an attention grab, because he was no longer a starter, or something along that line. Not really the case. So his contract was the entire reason that he was benched. Now, this is a guy that brought his team to the Super Bowl, and the very next season brought his team to the NFC Championship game. He had two up and down seasons in between that and this summer because of injury. So his contract had a relatively unique clause that made it so if he got hurt at all during that preseason, that regular season, not only would that year's contract money be guaranteed, but the next year's contract money would be guaranteed to the tune of $20-some-odd million, because he had signed some sort of extension at that point and had done really, really well with the team prior to this. So with his playing style being something that lends itself to a lot of injury, they were getting worried about it, and they didn't want to play him at all and risk that at all unless they could get that verbiage out of the contract. Now, eventually, Kaepernick would sign some sort of agreement with them on the injury deal, but he would later be cut anyway, so it didn't really come into play at all. Now, this it didn't start with the kneeling. For a few weeks during this preseason, Kaepernick could be seen sitting down during the anthem on the sideline, just away from everybody along the sideline, standing with their hands over their hearts. He's just in the background on the bench sitting. Eventually, reporters saw this and asked him about it. Now, when he was asked about it, he was very forward, very eloquent. He knew his stuff. He rattled off some statistics, some names, and said, look, there's a lot of police brutality going on. Unarmed black men getting shot by police. Unarmed people getting killed by police in police custody. And disproportionately affecting, black and brown people throughout the country. And he would no longer stand to honor a country that wasn't standing for him and people like him. So, very eloquent, very straightforward, on message the whole time. Now, after this, a gentleman named Nate Boyer reached out to him. Nate Boyer was both a former NFL player, I believe he was a long snapper, if memory serves, and a former Marine. And he felt, as many people felt at some point, that sitting down during the anthem was very disrespectful to the country, as well as to the fallen troops that have died defending the country. And Boyer and Kaepernick arranged a meeting. They agreed, at Boyer's suggestion, that kneeling would be respectful. Now, Boyer suggested this because, as a former soldier, he understood that soldiers will kneel at the grave of one of their fallen brothers to show respect. So kneeling was still a sign of respect. So by kneeling during the anthem, he would still be able to show respect to the country and to the troops, while at the same time getting his point across during his protest. Kaepernick agreed with this point, and from that point on, knelt during the anthem. So it did not start as kneeling. And the kneeling came as a sign of respect. This is not other people's interpretations. Okay? This is just the facts of what they did, why they did it, sort of thing. Okay? Now, on the police brutality point, it was rough. It was terrible. Okay, for a number of years, media coverage had boomed with all of these sorts of shootings and killings. And it had been obviously happening for, so very long prior to this. And it was only really just getting into the spotlight. Now, during that period of time, it was particularly bad. Half because there was a lot of it going on, but, half because people were finally starting to pay attention. Now, probably the worst incident that I can think of happened in 2014. A gentleman named John Crawford III was just shopping in a Walmart and shopping for a BB gun. A white shopper of said Walmart saw him with the BB gun, immediately called police and said, "Hey, there's this armed black man in Walmart." They respond. They don't tell him to drop it. They don't announce themselves, anything like that. They just shoot. Don't trust me. The last I checked, the security footage of that Walmart for this incident was still online. It's gruesome. It's awful. And I won't make the rest of this video about just all these incidences, but I wanted to make the point that we need to make these stories about the gentleman that got killed or the people that got killed during this process, not about the murderers, not about the whole movement. This is about people. Now, moving on, we have Kaepernick kneeling in protest. There's 2 points I would like to make about this. It is not the first time that anyone in the NFL has knelt in protest during the anthem. It's not. The first time was when Timothy Tebow knelt during the anthem in protest in 2011 to protest abortion. There was no uproar at all. Now, you can put 2 and 2 together here. Tebow is the conservative darling, and conservative media sources were really the source of the hating of Colin Kaepernick vibe. So I don't want to necessarily immediately jump on the race card here, but Tim Tebow's white, Kaepernick is black. Now, I don't also want to jump on the liberal versus conservative anything, but Tebow was protesting abortion, a very conservative viewpoint in politics. Kaepernick was protesting police brutality, something very frequently brought up by liberals in politics. The other thing I want to point out about this is the idea of sitting through the anthem. Marshawn Lynch, his entire career, has never once stood for the anthem. Ever. Look back. Never once, from day one, has Marshawn Lynch stood during the anthem. Now, he has never made this about a message, ever. He's never stood. He's a very private person, so he doesn't really talk to the media about things in general, and he definitely did not make it a political point. He just does not stand during the anthem. There's no uproar. So there's absolutely no uproar for Tim Tebow kneeling in protest during the anthem. There is absolutely no uproar for Marshawn Lynch, his entire career sitting through the anthem. So the whole conversation about Colin Kaepernick was disrespecting the flag and disrespecting the troops was co-opting the conversation. you heard it really loud and really frequently, and you never heard anybody actually try to make a counterpoint to what Kaepernick himself said about his protest. He said he was protesting because of police brutality. A lot of conservatives never heard that message, ever, because conservative media sources only harped on the idea that it was disrespectful to the troops, disrespectful to the country, and kneeling during the anthem was, some sort of awful, awful thing. Make your own judgment on that. That's fine. But these are the facts surrounding why Kaepernick did things, what he personally stated he was doing and why. The people surrounding him adding to that conversation, adding to his protest, making it different as it grew. And the only conclusion I can draw is that the conversation about whether or not it was disrespectful to the flag was simply co-opting the conversation. It was avoiding the actual conversation. It was taking the argument that you can't win and turning it into an entirely different argument where you can take the high road. It was a travesty. The media played into it, and because of this incident, I cannot accept anyone saying that the media is liberal. I can't. All right? Most media sources are owned by multi-billionaires, and most multi-billionaires vote conservative. Anyways, I don't want to make this horribly political. It was about Kaepernick's protest. And I feel like the man got a raw deal. I'm very thankful that now people are talking about signing Kaepernick to a team. You heard that out of Seattle very recently. Pete Carroll was the most recent coach to talk to Kaepernick, bring him in for a workout, and possibly sign him during this whole collusion of the NFL deal. So he's a logical person to actually sign him. And honestly, Kaepernick fits the style of play that Russell Wilson plays so extremely well that I think he would be a natural fit as a backup in that offense. I'd like to see him eventually get a crack to start. So, signing up for a team like Jacksonville that has a weak quarterback would be better for him. But, you could say the same thing for Cam Newton. So I think Kaepernick's signing will be because it's in the moment. Not because, he's the greatest thing for the team. It's because this moment right now means, God, if you don't sign that man, it's pretty obvious what side of this argument you fall on. And the NFL's really good about protecting its money. They see what they can benefit from. And I almost guarantee the team he signs with is going to be, overnight, have the most popular jersey on sale in Kaepernick's. I'll be making another couple of videos surrounding this topic and the protests in general, and then we'll get right back to our normal sports content. Thanks for watching. Hit me up in the comments. I'll talk to you soon.